Takai. Chapter 5. Donwei and Elan sped down towards the lower levels.
What is your plan when we arrive?
Dooku's sources placed their last known location somewhere in level 1313. Let's ask around and see what we can find out.
Remember, Donwei, we leave if I decide the risk is too great.
Understood.
All the while, Kukuri and Dravok followed behind on the speeder bike, maintaining their distance so as not to be spotted.
Get closer! We're gonna lose them!
If I get any closer, they'll see us!
Kukuri grumbled and kept her eyes on the speeder as it suddenly dipped down.
Dravok, stop!
What?
Stop the bike!
Dravok noticed the underworld portal they were headed for and immediately stopped the bike just as it reached the edge.
Are you crazy? You almost sent us into freefall!
Will you stop complaining? We have to follow them!
How exactly do we do that, genius? We can't exactly float down gracefully on a speeder bike.
Dravok looked ahead and saw an incoming freighter. Suddenly, he got an idea.
Dravok? No.
Dravok smirked.
Hold on tight, Kukuri!
Dravok!
Dravok engaged the thrusters as the bike sped over the pit towards the freighter. Kukuri screamed in fear, squeezing the breath out of Dravok as the speeder landed on top of the freighter as it began its slow descent. As the bike halted, Kukuri opened her eyes and got off, hitting Dravok in his shoulder.
You idiot! Are you out of your mind?
What? We needed a way down. Now we just wait for this thing to land and we track down our masters.
You could have killed us!
Will you relax? I have everything under control.
Oh, really? And how exactly do we get the speeder bike back to the temple?
Easy. We just put a tracker on the freighter and track it down after.
I can't tell if you're stupid or you just enjoy messing with me.
Dravok's gaze fixed on something behind Kukuri.
Seriously, what is your problem? Is your brain made of carbonite?
Kukuri?
And what about the people flying this freighter? What if they're bounty hunters or spice smugglers?
Kukuri?
This is the last time I let you take the lead anywhere.
Kukuri!
What?
Kukuri turned around and saw the freighter headed straight for a tunnel as the top began to creep closer.
Jump!
What about the speeder?
Leave it!
Kukuri and Dravok leapt from the freighter onto the nearby walls, gripping onto pipes as the freighter entered, knocking the bike off its hull as it tumbled down below, crashing onto a landing platform, causing 3 workers to run out and inspect the commotion. Kukuri and Dravok leapt from the wall into the tunnel and looked down.
Great. There goes our ride.
One thing at a time, Kukuri. Come on.
Dravok started walking further into the tunnel as Kukuri groaned and followed him, both Jedi putting their hoods up. Meanwhile, Donwei and Elan set down their speeder in level 1313. Handing a few credits to the deck officer, Donwei stepped out alongside Elan.
Who exactly are we looking for here?
That's the difficult part. Let's start by asking around. I see a cantina up ahead. Remember, we're not here to cause trouble.
Elan nodded and walked alongside Donwei as they made their way through the crowd, many onlookers shocked at the sight of Elan walking by. They soon approached the cantina as the guard at the door stopped them.
Identification?
Donwei stepped close to the man.
Jedi business. I suggest you step aside and not hinder us.
The guard looked at them.
No lightsabers. Hand them over.
Donwei looked to Elan, who nodded, as they handed their weapons to the guard, who locked them in a box.
No funny business, Jedi.
There won't be any trouble. Be sure to keep an eye on those. There may be a handsome reward should you do so.
The guard raised an eyebrow and smirked, sitting on the box.
I look forward to it.
Donwei ushered Elan inside as they looked around at the patrons drinking and smoking.
Find us a seat. I'm going to have a look around.
Elan scratched his head and searched for a spot that could accommodate his large stature as Donwei walked to the bartending droid.
What's your poison?
2 Noonan fixers.
The droid began to prepare the drinks as Donwei leaned forward.
I'm looking for some information as well, if you have any.
The droid's head rotated and looked to Donwei as it prepared the drinks.
What kind of information?
Someone here on level 1313 is smuggling dangerous creatures to the Outer Rim through a covert network. Would you happen to know anything about that?
The droid served the 2 drinks.
I'm afraid local gossip is not part of my protocol. If it's information you require, Ask the patrons by the holotables. They come here quite often.
Donwy nodded and handed a couple credits over, taking the drinks and going to Elan, sitting uncomfortably hunched in a booth.
Please tell me you found something.
Donwy handed a drink to Elan and sat.
The droid said to ask the patrons by the holotables. Keep calm. Drink. We don't want to arouse suspicion.
Elan grunted and held the cup in his grasp, drinking it like a shot.
I think I prefer a cup of tea.
Donwy nodded and looked to the holotables as a few of the patrons gathered in a stupor around a hologram of a dancing Twi'lek.
This place is disgusting.
I concur. The dregs of society tend to mix together in these parts.
Hopefully we won't be here long.
Donwy finished his drink and after a few moments got up with Elan as they walked over to the holotable, where Elan's antlers disrupted the hologram of the Twi'lek, causing audible groans from the angered patrons.
Come on, move it!
You're blocking the best part.
Elan sighed and stepped to the side as Donwy walked to one of the men.
Sorry to disturb your activity, but we're looking for someone. Yeah, I know just who you're looking for. He's outside, just keep walking till you go over the railing.
The other men guffawed with gusto as Donwy glared.
Perhaps you'd be open to speaking with a bit of persuasion.
The patron glared and put his hand on his blaster.
Don't even think about it, Jedi.
Elan stepped forward and pushed the two apart.
We are not here to cause trouble.
It seems you found trouble, Jedi.
Donwy and Elan turned their attention to the corner booth, where a Rodian with dark blue skin sat, twirling his drink in his hand.
Apologies, friend. I don't believe I caught your name.
Probably because I didn't give it.
The Rodian leaned forward on the table.
What business brings two Jedi Knights to these parts of the city?
Donwy walked over.
Word has it that Bala Shud the Hutt has his men smuggling creatures for him down here.
The Rodian sipped his drink.
Bala Shud is in prison.
He's escaped from captivity. Do you know anything about this operation?
That all depends on two things. Who's asking, and what's the price? I've already pieced together the who, and you should know I'm not too fond of the Jedi. Which means the price is going to be steep.
Donwy looked into the deep, glassy eyes of the Rodian and waved his hand.
You'll tell us everything you know about this operation.
The Rodian laughed.
Your mind tricks only work on the weak-minded. I assure you, I'm not.
Donwy slammed his hand down on the table as the Rodian jumped back and pulled his blaster, along with the other thugs, aiming at the Jedi. Elan quickly pulled Donwy back and opened his robe, handing over a pouch of credits.
Apologies, my friend. My companion has a quick temper. There's no need for the blasters. Tell us what you know, and we'll be on our way.
The Rodian eyed the pouch.
Why should I?
I can tell from how quick you are with a blaster that you've made more than your fair share of enemies around here, which likely means you are a wanted man. If you tell us what you know, those credits are yours, and we'll forget we ever saw you.
The Rodian looked closely at the eyes of the Nallyrog Jedi before holstering his weapon and signaling his men to do the same.
There are whispers about of some creatures that have gotten loose from a recent shipment. There's an old sewage treatment plant a few blocks east from here, out of the public eye. If I was smuggling creatures of ill repute, that would be where I would be doing business. Keep an eye out for officers of the law who seem out of place. Disguises can be quite convincing to the untrained eye.
Elan nodded and turned to Donwy.
Come, let's get going.
Donwy looked to the Rodian with a glare as they left the bar. As the men continued watching the Twi'lek, the Rodian looked through the credits and flipped one in the air as a Weequay sat beside him.
Not the best idea to be mixing up with the Jedi, Rondo.
Rondo chuckled.
Relax. I know what I'm doing.
Elan and Donwy stepped outside and retrieved their weapons from the guard, offering a handsome tip in exchange as they started making their way east.
That's 300 credits we've spent so far, don't we? Let's pray this venture is worth it.
We won't know until we arrive. Come on. Meanwhile, Kukuri and Dravok continued through the tunnel, occasionally moving away from oncoming freighters and transports.
I can sense Master Donwi. He's not too far.
I see a maintenance exit over there. Let's move.
Kukuri followed Dravok to the doorway, leading to a long, rusted set of steps leading down a narrow corridor.
Watch your step.
Step by step, they made their way down and reached a clearing with enormous metal containment tanks lined up on a long stretch of metal floors, lined with drains.
What is that stench?
Dravok held his sleeve over his nose.
Definitely sewage. Come on.
Walking alongside the tanks, they started to feel uneasy, as though they were being watched. Then they heard voices. Hiding behind one of the tanks, Kukuri listened.
Just keep them sedated and there won't be a problem. If they wake up, then you're in trouble.
How much is that fat hut paying us for these things?
Not as much as last time, thanks to Ronak. Damn fool lost one of them down here and he docked our pay. He's lucky the Nexu got him before Bala shoot or he would have been in far worse shape.
Kukuri looked to Dravok.
What's a Nexu?
No idea. We shouldn't be here. We should find our masters.
As they turned to leave, they heard another voice chime in.
Just got word from the cantina. 2 Jedi are down here looking for us. Hurry up and get these things tranquilized, and let's get them loaded in. It's gonna be a long trip to Raxus, and I don't want to waste any more time here in this festering stinkhole.
Kukuri looked to Dravok, who held a finger on his lips, and ushered her forward.
Hey!
Kukuri and Dravok turned sharply as a man holding a blaster aimed at them. Without thinking, Dravok ignited his lightsaber and cut through the man's weapon before Kukuri used the force to slam him into one of the tanks, making a loud echoing clang. The smugglers suddenly looked up.
What was that?
Drawing their blasters, the 3 goons split up and went searching around. Dravok and Kukuri quickly tried running to the exit way above the tanks until a blaster bolt whizzed by Kukuri's hair as she activated her lightsaber with Dravok.
It's the Jedi!
Kukuri and Dravok held their weapons at the ready as the smugglers surrounded them.
Padawans. Bold of you to come to the lower levels.
Kukuri glared as the smugglers aimed to shoot. Before the triggers were pulled, a loud screech echoed through the area. Kukuri looked to Dravok.
What was that?
From out of nowhere, a Nexu leapt on top of one of the smugglers who screamed as it mauled him. The other 2 turned to the Nexu and tried to fire on it. A screech came from behind, however, as a second Nexu charged the terrified smugglers, mauling them until they were all dispatched and left lifeless on the ground. Kukuri and Dravok stood in fear, holding their sabers as the scowling Nexu both looked towards them. Dravok quickly turned to Kukuri.
Get behind me! Watch my back!
Kukuri stood back to back with Dravok as the Nexu began to encircle them. Holding out their blades, the 2 Padawans kept their gaze on the creatures. Fast as lightning, one of the Nexu leapt forward, ducking under Kukuri's blade and leaping to bite her neck. Kukuri instinctively moved out of the way as one of the Nexu's claws sliced her on the shoulder. Dravok swung wildly at the Nexu, driving it back away from Kukuri before the second one used its whip-like tail to strike at Dravok's hand, knocking the saber away before lunging at him.
Dravok!
Kukuri used the force to push the Nexu back as Dravok stood and grabbed his lightsaber. The Nexu sprinted full charge at the Padawans, who leapt up to the top of one of the tanks. Kukuri looked down and saw the Nexu leap onto the sides of the tank, trying to claw their way up.
What do we do?
Dravok pointed to the catwalk above them, leading to the exit.
There! Jump!
Kukuri leapt in the air onto the catwalk.
Come on!
Just as Dravok leapt in the air, his boot was caught by the claws of one of the Nexu in midair. Kukuri reached out, grabbing Dravok's hand, but the Nexu lunged again, pulling Dravok painfully back to the metal floor, stunned and hurt.
Dravok!
Dravok groaned and looked in fear as the Nexu leapt on him. Fighting back, Dravok jabbed the Nexu in the eyes, but was soon overpowered as the claws of the Nexu dug into his chest and across his face. Kukuri leapt down and landed right on top of one of them, driving her boots into its back, forcing it to leap back as she held the injured Dravok behind her. Kukuri ignited her saber in fear as both Nexu encircled her. Suddenly, a loud guttural cry rang out as the Nexu looked around in fear. From out of the shadows, Master Elan charged full speed into both Nexu, knocking them away as Donwi jumped out and pulled Dravok and Kukuri aside to safety. Dravok's vision was blurry, but he could make out the shape of Master Elan as he lifted one of the Nexu into the air with his bare hands and threw it harshly into the metal containment tanks before grabbing the other by its throat and slamming it into the floor, incapacitating both creatures. Kukuri looked to Donwi.
Master!
What are you doing down here?
Elan ran over and picked up Dravok.
Kyril, can you hear me?
Dravok groaned.
Master Elan?
Elan looked to Donwi.
This mission is over, Donway. He needs medical attention.
Take them to the speeder. I'll be there as soon as I give this place a look around.
Elan stomped his boot and huffed, making a loud growl.
Now, Donway. That's an order.
Donwi looked to Elan and frowned, but nodded as he looked down in disappointment at Kukuri.
Come on.
Kukuri, feeling awful, followed her master as they made their way out of the sewage plant and towards the landing bay. Far in the Expanse regions, a peculiar starship entered the atmosphere of the planet Castu, a rocky world of ice and tundra, inhabited by precious few who could withstand the cold. The ship flew with graceful ease towards the surface, landing outside of a small town in the valley of the Gray Mountains. Stepping off, a man with long blonde hair and gray eyes, wearing a thick gray poncho and hooded cloak, his face obscured by his scarf. The snow crunched under his footsteps as he approached the dome building made of thick stones. As the man stepped inside, a bell alerted the portly alien sitting behind the desk.
Are you the buyer?
That depends on your wares.
The alien grunted and hoisted himself from the chair.
Well then, you're in luck. The name is Frigua. Come, I will show you my collection.
The man walked with Frigua to the back of the store as the alien started searching for items.
You are Heshmut then?
I am.
Yes, I was told you were interested in my wares. Here we have the Gavi stick used by the great Tuscan chieftain Ruabok in the great siege of the Junlin Waste 2 centuries ago.
Fascinating, but not quite what I'm looking for.
Ah, a man of discerning tastes, I see. Let's see.
Frigua lifted a glass case and held up a large red gemstone the size of a hand fruit.
This Karuska gemstone was owned by the Bith philosopher Brukathi over a millennia ago. Extremely rare. Would look fantastic in any room.
Heshmut looked at the gem with indifference.
I've no need for a gemstone. Show me the things you keep for select customers.
Heshmut handed a briefcase full of credits to Frigua, whose eyes bulged wide at the sight.
Yes. Follow Frigua.
Frigua led Heshmut down a staircase and punched a code into a door hidden from sight, and led him inside a room full of ancient artifacts of all cultures, locked behind thick glass cases.
Take a look around. See what piques your interest.
Heshmut walked around and looked at a Durasteel door and smiled.
Show me what's behind here.
Frigua carefully looked at Heshmut.
Nothing that is for sale.
Everything has a price. And this may be what I came to see. Show me.
Frigua grumbled uneasily and inserted a key into the command console as the door opened, revealing an enormous chunk of solid crystal. Inside, a massive form of its slumbering inhabitant.
Tell me about this.
Found centuries ago, drifting through space. A Gendai warrior with Jedi powers. Imprisoned in crystal stasis by the Order of Tassara. There he remains to this day.
Is he dead?
Frigua clutched the box of credits in his hands.
Very difficult to kill a Gendai. Most likely dead. But we will never know.
Heshmut carefully approached the towering crystal.
So if he were freed,
Could he be revived?
Not possible. Only a member of the Order of Tassara would be capable of freeing him.
Heshmut smiled deviously and placed his hand on the crystal as it slowly began to crack and glow. Frigwa looked in terror as the prison shattered into pieces and the enormous warrior fell out to the floor with a booming thud. Frigwa was speechless as Heshmut approached and withdrew a large, deep red lightsaber.
Well, isn't that odd? I must be of the Order of Tassara.
Frigwa didn't have the chance to scream or protest as he was mercilessly cut down. Heshmut deactivated the lightsaber and looked at the now freed body of the prisoner.
Shelviak the Conqueror. Finally.